My girlfriend sent me 3 words. I'm not angry. I said 1 word back. Okay. Then I put my phone down and never reached out first again. 4 days later, she sent 17 messages between 11 p.m. and 2 a.m. I was 29. Contract lawyer. 2 years with Maya. And somewhere in those 2 years, I had learned to treat her silence like a smoke alarm. The moment she went quiet, I would scan everything. Replay conversations. Audit my tone. I told myself that was just what caring looked like. I was wrong. The shape of it was simple. She would feel something. Decide not to say it. Go quiet. Then wait. Wait for me to notice. Wait for me to ask. Wait for me to perform enough concern to prove I was paying attention. And I always did. Every single time. I had trained myself to chase her silence. And she had learned, without ever deciding it consciously, that the silence worked. The night it broke was a Tuesday. We had dinner plans. She canceled an hour before. 3 words. Not feeling it. I said no problem. I meant it. I was tired. I cooked at home, watched something, went to sleep. Normal night. Next morning, she texted, I'm not angry. I looked at that for a moment. Not angry about what? I hadn't argued with her. I hadn't pushed back on the cancellation. I had said no problem and meant it. And yet here she was, arriving the next morning with an unprompted declaration of non-anger, which meant she was angry. And she was telling me she wasn't so that I would ask why she was. I had answered that move dozens of times. The correct response, according to the script we had been running, was, Are you sure? You seem upset. What's wrong? Did I do something? Then she would say nothing. I would keep asking. She would eventually tell me. I would apologize. Balance restored. I typed, okay. Put my phone down. Went to work. I did not check my phone every 20 minutes. I did not draft a longer message and delete it. I did not ask if she was sure. I went to work. Had a full day. Ate lunch. Came home. Cooked. Read for an hour. Went to sleep. She did not text again that day. Day 2, nothing. I felt the old pull. The trained reflex. The urge to reach out and smooth it over. I felt it the way you feel a habit. Not because you want the thing, but because the groove is worn deep and your mind keeps sliding toward it. I chose not to follow it. Not to punish her. I want to be clear about that. My motive was simpler. I had looked at that message and recognized, for the first time with total clarity, that I was being asked to manage an emotion she had decided not to name. And I decided, quietly, without announcement, that I was done doing that. Day 2 became day 3. Day 3 I went to the gym. Had dinner with my brother. Watched a film I had been putting off for months. My brother asked how Maya was. I said I wasn't sure. He looked at me. I didn't explain. She still hadn't texted. Here is the thing about silence used as a lever. It only works if the other person is more uncomfortable with it than you are. Maya had always been comfortable in the silence because she had always known it would end. It would end because I would end it. She wasn't suffering in the silence. She was waiting in it. Waiting for the knock that always came. The knock didn't come. Day 4. I woke up, made coffee, sat at my kitchen table, and felt something I hadn't felt in a long time. Still. Not happy, not sad. Just still. Like a room after the furniture has been moved out, and you can finally see the actual shape of the walls. Then my screen lit up. 17 messages. Sent between 11 p.m. and 2 a.m. while I was asleep. First few calm. Hey. You okay? Haven't heard from you. Then a shift. Are you seriously doing this right now? I said I wasn't angry. This is really mature. Then another shift. I can see you're ignoring me. Fine. Actually not fine. Can you just tell me what's happening? Then near the end, I just wanted to talk and you disappeared on me. And finally, I think we need to talk. I read all 17. Sat with them. Then I replied to the last one only. Sure. When works for you. She called within 2 minutes. I let it go to voicemail. Texted back. In back-to-back meetings until 6. Can we talk tonight? She said yes. That night, she said she'd felt ignored. She said when she canceled dinner, she had been going through something and needed me to check in. I asked why she hadn't said that when she canceled. She said she shouldn't have to. She said if I knew her, I would have known. I let that sit for a second. Then I asked, when you texted me saying you weren't angry, what did you want me to do? She paused. I wanted you to ask what was wrong. And if I had asked, I said, what would you have said? Long pause. Probably nothing. I don't know. I just wanted to know you cared. That sentence landed differently than she intended it to. I had cared. Consistently, demonstrably, for 2 years. I had built my entire emotional response system around her comfort, and she had interpreted my failure to chase this particular silence, a silence I had no reason to read as distress, as evidence I didn't care. I told her what I had noticed. No anger in it. Just, I think I've been treating your silence like an emergency for a long time, and I don't think that's been good for either of us. She said I was making it about me. I didn't argue that. What I said was, I don't want a relationship where either of us has to decode silence to figure out what the other person needs. I need us to just say it. She said, I'm not that kind of person. And there it was. The real sentence. The one underneath everything else. She was telling me, directly and honestly, that she did not intend to change the fundamental way she communicated in conflict. The silence, the unprompted non-anger, the waiting for me to chase. That was not a bug she was working on. That was the feature. I heard her. I didn't argue. I didn't try to convince her she could be different. I said, okay, I need a few days to think. She thought I was punishing her again. I told her I wasn't. I told her I genuinely needed to think. She said she felt like she was walking on eggshells. I found that interesting because I had been walking on eggshells for 2 years and it had never occurred to me to say it out loud. I took 3 days. I canceled plans to see her that weekend. Gently, no drama. Those 3 days I thought about one thing only, what I actually wanted. Not what I was afraid of losing. Not what I was used to. What I wanted. I wanted a relationship where, when something was wrong, the other person said so. I wanted directness. I wanted to stop lying awake, replaying conversations, trying to locate an offense I hadn't been told about. Maya was smart and funny and genuinely kind in most contexts. Those 2 years had real good in them. And underneath the good, also real, the slow erosion of my own stillness. The hypervigilance. The way I had learned to scan her face when I walked into a room. The way her mood had become whether I was always watching. What I missed was not Maya. What I missed was the version of us I had believed, in the first 2 months, we were going to be. I went back to her on the 4th day. I said it clearly. I cared about her. The 2 years had mattered. I didn't want a relationship built on silence and inference. I needed a partner who would tell me directly when something was wrong. And if she couldn't do that, this was probably the end. She was quiet for a long time. Real quiet. Not strategic. The kind of quiet that happens when someone is genuinely sitting with something hard. Then she said, I don't know how to do what you're asking. I told her I appreciated her saying that. More honesty in that one sentence than in most of our 2 years. We didn't end that night. But something shifted. She started trying to say things directly. Not perfectly. Not always. But sometimes she would catch herself going quiet and say the thing instead. And on the days she didn't, I stopped chasing it. The system, once I stopped feeding it, had nothing to run on. Here's what I know now. Every dynamic in a relationship is a negotiation that happens mostly without words. You teach people how to reach you through your responses. What you run toward. What you let sit. What you reward with your attention and what you allow to remain unanswered. I had taught Maya that silence was a lever. Not maliciously. Not stupidly. I had done it because I loved her and the fastest way to end her discomfort was to run toward it. What I hadn't understood was that every time I ran, I was teaching her something I never meant to teach. The silence works. Keep using it. The day I stopped running, that lesson began to undo itself. There is a version of this story where I am the villain, where a woman tried to communicate the only way she knew how, and her partner withdrew, and she sent 17 messages into the dark, and he read them the next morning like evidence. I know that version exists. And here is the question it leaves me with. The one I can't fully answer. If someone has only ever been given one tool, and that tool causes harm, who is responsible? The person who handed them the tool, again and again, every time they reach for it? Or the person who keeps reaching for the only thing that has ever worked? The most loving thing I ever did for Maya was stop chasing her silence. But I still can't tell you with certainty whether that was an act of care or an act of self-preservation. I think it was both. And I think in most real relationships, those two things are the same thing. We just don't like to admit it. The people who love you most are not the ones who chase every silence. They are the ones who trust you enough to let it sit and know themselves well enough to tell the difference between a silence that needs no answer and one that is quietly asking to be found. Learn that difference. It will cost you something, but not nearly as much as never learning it at all.